Yeah, kid. Welcome back to another episode of the Digital Handsome Homebuyer podcast. My name is Charles, aka the Handsome Homebuyer, aka Captain Permit, aka El Judío Maravilloso. All right, and obviously we all know we're back in business. It's a post-COVID world. It's a little bit of funky world. It just came from the dentist. That's why we're 8 minutes late. I feel like I just went 10 rounds with Tyson, but my teeth are clean. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. Obviously, we also know who is always looking good, also feeling good, and also doing an amazing job in the world of permits. And there's a lot of changes going on. I just got a call today from the town of Hempstead. You are never allowed in the building again. Period. Ever. End of story. You are never allowed in the town of Hempstead building department ever, ever, ever again. We are living in a digital world, and the Captain Permit is here to help you navigate that. 516-777 soul. Nope. Strike that. 516-513-8838. I'm putting it in the comments. Captain P. Obviously, I'm the Handsome Homebuyer. I am buying houses with reckless, I'll say it again, reckless abandon right now. 2 deals today, excuse me, 3 today. I got 2 scheduled for next week already. We are rocking and rolling. New construction, development. If you have a house that smells like cat pee, is dated from the 1960s, land, commercial property, toxic gas stations, I don't give a shit. If it is real estate, if God created it, you can walk on it and you can't move it, I want to buy it. Let's do it. 516-777 soul. I'll put that in now. Bang. All right, listen, today's guest is awesome. He is an unbelievable human being. He is a legend in real estate, in mortgages. He has done everything there is to do in the space. He's been through every cycle. He is still standing, 6'7", I might add, handsome as hell, good head of hair. I actually met him back in the Mako days. We're going to go over that in a minute once I bring him on. But he is the owner and operator of the last 40 years, Interstate Home Loans right here in Melville. We've done a ton of deals together. Excellent company. He's also, again, a builder, developer, but we're going to go through all that in a moment. My man, my friend, Mr. Terry Cullen. Bang!
Hello there, Charles. Hello there.
Did you listen to that intro or no?
I mean, oh my God. I'm like shocked.
My goal is to always under-promise and over-deliver.
Absolutely.
So no pressure. So I want to kick it off. I want to tell the people how we met because I think that's a pretty cool story in itself. And then I want to get some background because you've been around for a long time, my friend.
Too long.
You've seen it all. You've done it all. Yep. And the awesome thing about you is you've maintained this. You're just an awesome guy. You're always out there helping people. You've always done the right thing. Especially in industries like to have somebody be in the mortgage world for 40 years, squeaky clean is amazing. It's a rarity. I don't know anybody else who has the longevity that you do with the track record that you do in the mortgage world, in the development world. And so let's back it up for a minute. So Terry and I used to own a Mako, Better Get Mako back in the day. Probably 10 or 15 years ago, we were just trying to figure it out. Terry rolls in with a car he needs to get painted for one of his employees. And we've been friends ever since. And this was way before I even knew anything about real estate. And then coincidentally, when I first started getting into real estate, I went to see Terry and I sat down in his office. And I remember this like yesterday. And this was like one of the defining moments of my life so far. So Terry's was a big builder, is a big builder. And I look up on the wall and there's Terry standing there, 6'7", handsome, Newsday, cover of Newsday, and it says, Long Island builder, so-and-so. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I want to get to that level. Like, I want to be on the cover of Newsday one day. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be that guy. And I got that inspiration from you from seeing someone that I know. And it happened like 6 months ago, which was just an awesome kind of, chain of events.
Well, thank you for that. But, like everybody, maybe including yourself, you don't get there by yourself. I really think that part of my success, if you can call it that, or longevity, is you have to have good people working for you and with you. and that's one of the things I've learned early on. I have a terrific partner. I have very special people that work for me. And I think that's what keeps you in the game. It keeps you honest. It keeps you motivated. So I have to give props out to that. But yeah, it's funny, when I first met you to now, I mean, it is very fulfilling to actually have a friend like you who I've known for so long, that you literally said, this is what I'm going to do. And damn, you did it. Like you sucked the knowledge and you sucked the information out of everybody, but you did it in such a polite and nice way that when you would leave the room, you're like, damn, this guy just took all my secrets.
Just drained me.
He's running with it, and he is going to kick my ass. He's going past me, and he's just going to do it. And that is really cool. I like that. So props to you. Props to you for sure.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing, your story and your success and your lessons. So I want to take it back so people understand. And actually, some of this stuff I don't even know about you, so it's cool to dig in a little bit more. Were you born, raised Long Island?
100%.
Born and raised on Long Island.
Absolutely. I grew up in Wantagh.
Oh no shit! I grew up in Wantagh, right?
I know. That's what we talked about. You don't remember. I grew up off of Wantagh Avenue, but I didn't go to Wantagh High School. I ended up going to Holy Trinity. So I didn't have that real Wantagh connection.
Okay.
Because once you go private school, which I guess was like 4 or 5 miles away, you kind of, you get into a different group of people.
Okay.
So.
Did you go to college?
Yeah, I actually went to 2 colleges. I went to CW Post, played ball there.
Okay.
And then I went to St. Joseph's College up in Maine.
Okay.
Which was one of the reasons why I went there, is I wanted to play ball over in Europe, and they had a whole trip to play over in Sweden and Finland. So I was very fortunate enough to go with a great group of people over there, and I just had a blast.
When you say ball, you mean basketball, I assume?
Yes, basketball. What else am I gonna do? It
could be football. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, no, it was basketball the whole way.
So did you end up playing in Europe?
Well, they offered me a pro contract. They were only allowed 2 Americans per team at that time, but wow. I was a junior, and so I needed to come back. I was on a scholarship, fortunately, and I needed to come back my senior year. And so after my senior year, I literally, me and my friend Gus Caponides, we opened up a huge lobster company. I was shipping lobsters all over the country, start from Maine, Nova Scotia, all the way down to Manhattan, Fort Lee, New Jersey, Virginia Beach, Staten Island, all over Long Island. And I had a warehouse in Seaford.
How old were you?
I was 21. Red Rock Lobster Company. I was 21 at the time.
Where did the concept come from?
Well, that's a great question. So my buddy, my best friend, is Greek, and he was working for some Greek owners of restaurants, and they had convinced him to go up to Maine and buy, a few thousand pounds of lobsters, because they owned a restaurant called the Lobster Box in Brooklyn. And I had said to him, I said, dude, are you going up there by yourself? I said, hey, maybe I should get involved, buy low, sell high. So we literally rented a truck, drove to Maine. We bought like 3,000 pounds of lobsters. We came down to New York. We delivered what we were going to deliver to his friend Artie, but then we started selling all these lobsters to all these other people, and we were making almost $1 a pound. Well, okay. If you got 3,000 pounds of lobsters, we worked 50 hours straight, nonstop. So for 50 hours, we both made almost very close to $2,000, like $1,800 each. And then we had the rest of the week off, and we were kids. We were 20, 21 years old. So that was great. And that's how I started my little bit of sales,
So where, where did was there financing involved? Did these guys upfront you the money? Did you just say, you know what, we're going to buy lobsters, we're going to figure it out? Did you, borrow from friends and family and just do it?
So
to be 21 and do that it's a big step.
So that's a great question, because that probably leads to other questions in the real estate business. Financing is pretty key to doing a lot of things. So I knew, playing ball up there, I don't want to say famous, but a lot of people knew me. I played ball up in Maine. And it so happened that I had a girlfriend that knew some of the fishermen. And so I got to know them, and they kind of trusted us. They did trust us, I should say. So really, the first trip up there, we rented a truck. And so that was not an expense. And then we went up there and we paid them half up front.
Okay.
And I think I borrowed the money from my dad, and my friend borrowed from his parents. And then after we were done selling all the product, I think we went to Western Union and we sent the balance of what we owed. So we did this for a while, and then we started getting some credit. And then what was really crazy, things got a little out of control. Red Lobster came to us because we were kicking everybody's ass because we didn't have a facility that we really had to maintain. There were Jordan's Lobster, and there was other big places that charging a lot of money. And so they gave us the account for Long Island, and we were all excited. We went out and partied, Then the time came to deliver the lobsters, and they were like, okay, we're going to pay you every 60 days or 90 days. I'm like, well, how many lobsters do you want? They're like 5,000 a week. Well, 5,000 times $3 a pound wholesale, times 60 days or 90. We can't do this. So unfortunately, we stayed small. We couldn't do the big boys because we just didn't have that huge capital that you needed. You needed a couple $100,000, and we were 21 years old.
Yeah.
So we were cash and carry. We ended up being cash and carry. We couldn't take on the big boys to really take it to another level. We couldn't do that.
This was also the 1980s, I assume, right?
Listen, it was the 80s. Dude, I don't even want to go. This is a nice podcast. I'm not going to go into the 80s and who we had to deal with. And my partner at the time, Gus, was also my size.
Okay.
And I'll just say this. In the 80s, there was a lot of shrimp trucks being hijacked. There was a lot of fish trucks being hijacked. Like literally, they would pull you over and say, "Just run. We're taking your truck." So I'll end the story with, we had a truck, and we got the truck from a hospital called Methodist Hospital. It was a big box truck. And my friend Gus was like, okay, we want to put Red Rock Lobster on the side. And I said, no, dude, we don't want to get hijacked. Let's just leave the hospital name. We drive up to Maine, and then nobody will bother us. And so we had some good longevity. Nobody really bothered us, but we had to fend for ourselves. Let me put it that way. So it toughened me up.
Ultimately, what happened to the lobster business?
So it lasted a long time. My cousin Terrence Manning, he was working for us doing deliveries. He got killed in 9/11. My great friend, first cousin, very, very tragic. So he had actually moved on, and he didn't want to do deliveries anymore. He was a very smart guy. I was still playing a lot of ball. I had to go back my senior year. My friend Gus was, running a lot of things. At the end of the day, I came back. My dad had owned a mortgage company.
Oh, okay.
So he said, my dad was one of the first mortgage bankers in Long Island, probably number 2 or 3. Like he was he was a banker in 1974, got one of the first mortgage banker's licenses. So he said to me, he says, Terry, I know you're doing what you're doing, but selling money, and you're a very honest person, you should really look into my business. Now, I didn't want to work for my dad. We didn't always get along. I don't know, sometimes parents are great being parents. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
My dad, was tough to deal with. And he was a big guy. He was 6'4". He was an ex-cop. It was just tough to deal with, But anyway, like a knucklehead, I decided to do it. And I was a fish to water, man. I loved it. And I just took off like a bat out of hell. And I just started lending money, talking to people. We had hard money. I was doing hard money in the 80s. I was selling regular mortgages. If you look at the historical data, interest rates were up to 16%. I was selling people loans at 14, 15, 16% fixed rates.
These are traditional. You're talking about first-time home buyers, people going out to buy a house, live in.
Yeah. The rates were really, I think it was Jimmy Carter days and everything, and the rates were just sky high. And then came like 83, 84, the adjustable mortgage. This and the fax machine were very confusing to people like my father and his partner. Like, what is this all about? And I'm like, Dad, if we don't sell adjustable mortgages, we're going to get our asses kicked. And my father's like, no, I don't even know what it's all about. Just keep doing what you're doing. So I had this huge fight with him, nose to nose. And I said, I'll never forget this. My father said, hey, how was it out there today? I said, Dad, it was great. He's like, really? He goes, well, what happened? I said, somebody tried to give me a mortgage, and I told him I didn't want it, and I was so happy about it. He's like, you turned down the mortgage? Yeah, I said, yeah, it was one of these stupid adjustables. I said, no way. Don't give me that. And so I, obviously sarcastic, but I ended up going to make a deal with a company called Public Equities, a gentleman by the name of the Glackmans. And I went in there and I said, they knew my dad very well. We participated in a lot of pools with mortgages. And I said, I need to buy $5 million worth of adjustable pools that I'll participate with you. And they said, sure, Terry. I was fortunate enough to be probably the top guy on Long Island. I used to close between 43 to 45 loans every month, every single month. But I worked 24/7 like you. Like I was nonstop.
You personally as a
just
loan
me, just me. So I went out there the next week. I collected, 30 applications of adjustables, 9.75 starting rate. But when you're at 14, 15, what else? What other options do you have?
Yeah.
So I brought them in. I had checks for appraisals. I had all that stuff. And my dad sees me working. I'm putting together the paperwork and everything. He's like, what the hell's going on? And I said, oh, Dad, I said, this is crazy. I said, I have like 30 applications I'm going to submit. What? He goes, awesome. And, of course, he hits the bottle and he's having a few drinks. I walk in and I handed him 30 applications. Now, in those days, the loans were 120 grand, was a good loan, My father looked at the applications. He's like, what the hell? And I said, listen, I worked it all out. Here's where you're going to sell them. Here's the pricing. This is what we got to do. And that was it. After that, I basically ran everything. I ran his company. I ran everything. Because, old school is great, but old school doesn't last. And so that was my tech play on the mortgage business, is the adjustable rate mortgages, which sounds kind of bizarre, but in those days it was a big deal. And honestly, it really was it kept the 80s going. So
this is actually there was a lot of points that popped up, but this is kind of a point I want to reinforce because I've met a lot of people like this. So what you kind of had with your father was a changing of the guards. That's what I like.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important. Like, we look at our parents and we look at them and we're like, they're our heroes. They're untouchable. They know everything. But their reality isn't our reality. And as time goes on and things change, and today they change very, very fast, there comes a point in time where you have to say, my parents did the best they could, but they're living in a different world and have different ambition and things that we do. And there comes a time where you may butt heads with your father or your mother and have to kind of, go your separate ways or take over. And obviously that's got to be tough for them. I've lived that exact same thing that you've went into. So it's kind of an interesting power dynamic and shift.
Yeah.
But I also know a lot of people that are my age and older, and they never had the courage to do what you did. And because of that, they're like still in their father or mother's shadow.
Yes.
And to me, that's tragic. And they have all these great ideas and they can do all these great things with the business, but out of respect, they don't.
Yes. And I will say that respect is a part of it. I also think there's a fear factor.
Yeah.
And I think the fear factor is mostly in the parents that, oh gosh, I hate to say that they don't have 100% trust in their child, but maybe that fear factor, and they say, hey, I just don't know if he knows what he's talking about. But the reality was that I was a bulldog in myself, and I was just like, Dad, I'm here to make a living. I'm here to set my mark on the world. Okay. And if you just let me do it my way, you're going to make a lot of money off of me. Let me just do this. And so in 1988, I was fortunate enough to have several people chasing me to open up my own mortgage banking company, which was a problem in itself, because I was probably I have 5 brothers and sisters. I was probably going to be handed this business, which would have caused problems in my family no matter what. Now, my siblings are great. My brother owns a title company. He's very successful. My sisters, everybody's very, doing very well. But at that particular time, if I stayed and I inherited that business, and deservingly so, to be honest with you, it would have been a problem. And I did not want a problem with my family. So I ended up, literally, I had made enough money. I became the youngest mortgage banker in New York State. At 27,
Wow.
At 27, I was approved as the mortgage banker. I had my own banker's license. I opened up my first office in Garden City at 27.
Let me stop you there for a second, because I want the people that watch this to understand. I want you to explain 2 things. A, I want you to explain exactly what a mortgage banker is, because there's a difference between like a mortgage banker or someone that just has a branch or
yes.
And then I also want you to kind of explain just the dynamic and the process of how the mortgage business works. Because I think even people that are involved in real estate day to day, yeah, they understand that as a realtor, their client has to get a mortgage, or as an investor, someone has to come with a mortgage. But I don't think they understand exactly how the mortgage world works.
Okay. And it is a little bit confusing. You do hear like weird things out there. I remember not too long ago when this COVID virus thing came out, the Fed funds started reducing rates to 0, almost 0, right? And so you had this run on mortgage applications where everybody's like, I'm going to refinance at 0%, which was insane. But the way the media was explaining everything was very unclear. So to explain a little bit about the difference, what is a mortgage banker? So a mortgage banker literally has a certain license to process, close, fund, and service mortgages. Okay, they're approved by the government to do these things. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, every single state. My company is in 25 states. We're licensed in every single state. We get audited. We have to have net worths. You have to have warehouse lines and everything to do that. So we can make any decisions we want in lending out money. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA. When you have a branch, which everybody's like, oh, I have a branch. You're really like a broker, a glorified broker, and you're taking applications. you may or may not be processing them, and then you're forwarding them to the main branch who's in charge of the loan, but you ultimately are working underneath that mortgage banker's license. Okay? And then you have a broker, and a broker is a unique thing where a broker goes out and for $500 they get a broker's license, but they don't really have to put up any bonds. They don't have to put up warehouse lines. And they're like an insurance broker in that they take somebody's application and then they shop it around. But unfortunately, they shop it around for the best price that they're going to get on the loan, not necessarily what the consumer is going to get. And I don't want to say that in a negative way. It's just that there's a lot of people out there that, they're in it for themselves, and that's just the way it is. And a lot of consumers just don't understand, hey, you're a broker, you're a branch, you're a banker, or you're a bank. The other day I gave a sales meeting. We have a bunch of young guys, and so I gave a sales meeting. And one of the kids raised his hand. He says, well, why are we always lower in rates than Wells or Chase or Bank America? Like, are we really going to close those rates at that? Now, I'm closing my loans at 2.75, okay? A lot of it's FICO driven and stuff, and I tried to explain to them that we all buy the money from the same window. It's the same government window. Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie, we're getting the money from the same spot. The advantage that I have as a banker, a non-servicing banker, because I don't believe in servicing. All right, servicing is done by, the Wells Fargos, the Chase, and they buy my product. They're literally in there every day. They buy my tapes, they buy my pools, because they want that customer so they could cross-market and sell them other products. I don't have those products to sell. I'm not going to sell them insurance, car loans, personal loans, student loans, business loans, CDs, anything you could think of. Those products I am not licensed to do. So there's a cost to get a customer. That cost to get a customer for anybody. If you're on the internet, they'll always ask you that question on Shark Tank. What does it cost to get a customer? So the cost for them to get my customer is they pay me what they call an SRP. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
All right. So an SRP is called a service release premium. When you service a loan, you get paid by the government to service that loan.
Okay.
You collect the payments. You make sure that their insurance is up to date. You make sure that the real estate taxes are up to date. And the government will pay you like 3/8 of a point every single year. Okay. It's a great model if you have billions of dollars. Okay. You could also get into a lot of trouble when people are going into forbearance, not making payments, because you're still obligated to forward those payments, okay, to those securities, because you have people like me and you that you could go and buy these securities. They count on that every month. And so when this COVID hit, you can run into serious problems liquidity-wise. So anyway, so you have these banks, they purchase my loans, and what they're doing is the average loan is on the books for 7 years, 7.5, blah, blah, blah. It depends on the coupon. So to give you an example, let's say a couple of years ago, the average coupon that they had in their portfolio was 4%. Okay. Sounds great, right? Now you have billions of dollars at 4%. You're sitting there, the bank is like, this is awesome. Well, what happens when the rates go down at 2 3/4? Your portfolio gets screwed. Your portfolio becomes devalued because you're going to have runoff. People are running away from that 4%, which you paid for. They're going to run away and they're going to go refinance at 2 3/4. So now, how does a company like mine differ from the banks? They pay me an SRP, which is equivalent to almost 4 years in advance profit. So if the average loan is on the books for 7 years, okay, they pay me a premium of around 3.5, almost 4 years up front when I sell them that loan. And why, right?
Yeah, why would they do that?
Okay, because they're betting on the fact that they're going to keep that loan for 7 or 8 years. So they're going to make 4 years of profit. They didn't originate that loan, so there's a cost there.
Okay.
But they're also going to cross-sell and cross-market them and sell them everything they can.
Got it.
And so it's almost like an acquisition of a client that they may not have had. So I have, in my opinion, now there's a lot of companies that say, I service loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, whatever. It's irrelevant because I sell and get an SRP. You can't compete with my rate. Now if I was servicing a loan, I wouldn't get that 3.5, 4 years. I would have to sit back and get it every year. I don't have to. They give me a check for that product with 4 years in advance. So what would you do?
No, I mean, and it's a lot less risk. It's a lot less overhead. It's a lot less operational risk.
Yes.
So,
but it's one and done. But it is a one and done scenario. So once I sell that customer, now they will call us. We will call them. But you're basically relinquishing your customer to them to sell so that they can now control that customer for years to come.
So let me ask you this. I'm curious. Obviously, Wells and Chase and all these companies, like they're big. They have an algorithm. They know exactly what each customer's worth, what they're going to get them for. Like everything. They have it down to like the cent.
Yep.
But how has the low interest rate environment over the last few years and now dropping now, like how has that impacted just the industry and them in general?
Wow, you asked a good question. So again, think of it as a bond as an instrument that has a value at 4%. If you have an instrument at 4% and the rates go to 5%,
yeah,
the instrument actually becomes stronger because people are not going to refinance out of their 4% to go into 5%. So you're not going to have what they call runoff.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're going to maintain that loan longer and collect your 3/8 of 0.5% every year on that customer. The longer you have the customer, you're a winner.
Yes.
Okay. When the rates go down, like right now, your portfolio is shit because you have everybody leaving. Now, you try and recapture as much as you can the runoff, but companies like mine, we're out there. We could beat just about anybody's rate. We literally do. We're stealing their customers. So the only thing that Wells can do is try and refinance their existing portfolio to keep their customers, but they literally have so many clients, they can't get to them all.
Yeah.
And plus, they may not have a relationship with them either.
Yeah.
They may only have that customer for a year, year and a half, 2 years. So when they lose that customer prior to 4 years, because if they paid for it from a company like mine, they're getting whacked.
Got it.
So that's a little bit scary. If you're in the portfolio business, in the servicing business, you have to be a big boy with deep pockets to literally stay in the game with this. And if you read up on some of these smaller servicing companies, like banks like mine, some of them do service loans. They got destroyed. They were literally taking their portfolios. If it was $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, they were going into the open market and trying to sell it, okay, to raise capital, because when people were doing these forbearances and not making payments and everything else, you're still responsible to make those payments. So it could be a treacherous business at certain times.
No, and it sounds like it's just, and I don't know, see, as long as I've known you, you're a very calm guy.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think you're a very calm guy, which is probably why you've been so successful in this industry, because when I think about what you're saying to me, regular residential loans, they don't have prepayment premiums. There's no defeasance. There aren't things like that to help the investor. So it's kind of like this machine that just has to literally pump 24/7, 365 and never stops.
Yes. Correct.
Right? So
yes.
Yes, I'm curious to know how you handle that on a personal level. And then over a 40-year period, having dealt with hundreds, if not thousands of employees
Yes.
going through this, I mean, how do you bring in quality help? How do you train them? How do you motivate them? How do you stay on the level that you are on for such an extensive period of time?
So great question. You know, I'm an avid fan of all your podcasts and all your social media stuff. And I see you every once in a while, like, damn, does anybody have a good plumber out there? Does anybody have that? Like, you're in the permit business. Why? Because some other guy sucked, right? So my business is a young man's game. Okay. I'm at the stage of my life where I'm passing it forward. I will give any person my knowledge that I think is going to suck it up and use it for the good of my company and for the good of themselves. I will give them all that knowledge. To do it year in and year out, because, you know, I have put a lot of people in the business over the years. Since 1981, I could tell you I put a lot of people in the business, Yeah. I would almost like to say, Charles, that I'm not even in the mortgage business at all times. I'm in the people business. Mortgages is secondary. I happen to close mortgages, yes, but I'm in the people business. And so I'm always looking for talent. That is an art in itself. You could run out there and hire knuckleheads, but in the long run, you know, you have a lot of these, you know, guys, and I hate to say it, you know, they want to sell stocks, they want to do this and whatever, and they think they're going to get into the mortgage business and they're going to run their business a certain way. I'm not into short-term gains.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for any of my peers that are successful. The people that I know, it's all long-term. You pay people what you're supposed to pay, you train them, and you look for talent. And I've always been successful. I have younger people. I coached for years. I love coaching younger kids. I did CYO coaching for years. I loved it. And I have a thing with younger people. It keeps me young. So I like bringing in the younger people, training them, getting them licensed. And that's how I survive. Now, I've had people working for me for 30 years. I have a salesman 34 years. I have processes, underwriters. They don't leave me. Maybe because I overpay them. I don't know. But once I like somebody, I'm loyal to a fault. Like I'm a loyal dog.
I can vouch for that.
And I'll do anything for them. And I've gotten phone calls in the middle of the night. I've done all sorts of things that I even second guess myself. But I will do what, if you're working for me and you're loyal, like, dude, I will knock down the forest to help you. And so the people that I have that really truly know me, because I'm not always an easy guy to get to know right off the bat, they know, hey, listen, if I have a situation, he's got my back.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
People still come and go. I mean, that's life.
And that's okay.
That is okay.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It is okay. And they come back too.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, listen, as an employer, it is our responsibility to help people grow to the point where they're ready to leave you.
100%.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because they're going to help you throughout that process. And then you don't know if you'll do business with them later on. But we have a responsibility to help each other, you know, get to the top of the mountain. And ultimately that helps everybody.
That's right.
I want to shift to talking about the investing, because it's interesting. You don't have any, like, I have a lot of, you know, traditional, like, education, school education, mentoring education in real estate investing. You went from college to lobsters to mortgages to you've done every kind of real estate investment deal there is, from fix and flip to new construction on all different levels to commercial. So,
I've done it all. One of the things that I don't know, Yeah, maybe I touched with you a couple of times in the past. I used to buy in the past, in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, I used to be good at buying second mortgages that were in default, buying them at a steep discount.
Okay.
I would buy the second mortgages if I liked the first mortgage scenario, and I would pay.
Non-performing or performing?
What's that?
Non-performing
None of them were. No, they weren't performing.
Okay, non-performing seconds.
Right, non-performing seconds. Usually, if they got a second, that means their first mortgage was fairly low LTV. That's
Okay.
where they'd enabled them to get to second. I would go. A lot of the seconds were private, groups of people or companies. They weren't, these huge things. So I was able to manipulate them a little easier, and so I would buy them at a discount, and then I would do, deeds for keys. And basically, if I got the second mortgage at a lower price, the first mortgage became irrelevant. If I was happy with the LTV of the first mortgage, and I could pick up the second at a severe, discount, and I just paid for the deed, I had the property. That was it. And I did that, and a lot of people didn't understand how I did a lot of my transactions. That was just a little trick that I did. You don't see that now as much because in 2008, everybody got wiped with the seconds.
Yeah.
But it'll happen one day again, although the COVID kind of messed it up. But in the future, when it happens, it could be 10 years from now, 8 years from now. That was a little trick that I had. Buying up those seconds.
So you used to buy non-performing seconds,
Yes.
make deal with the homeowner, and
Yes.
basically take over.
Yes. And then I wouldn't even have to pay the first mortgage until I fixed and flipped the house.
Got it. So you would
understand?
You would make. Got it. I got it. So
I didn't even have to borrow the money. I would sit with whatever the note rate was on that.
That's insane.
Right. No, that's good, right?
And it's brilliant. And the note was, and it also says a couple of things. A, you're a great salesman, but B, you're a trustworthy guy because when you're buying a deed from somebody, the obligation is still in their name. So they
that's right.
Do the right thing and perform.
Yeah. So I befriended these people. I would pay for them to relocate. I would find them a new place. There were times I had my guys literally helping people pack. It wasn't like I took advantage of a situation. They did not have the money to buy the second mortgage, period. Yeah. And they were just trapped.
Yeah.
And so relocating them into a rental situation to get back on their feet, it just was a logical scenario. But there wasn't a lot of investors out there looking to buy the second. They didn't, it didn't appear, it didn't calculate to people how to do that. But, don't forget, I started out also, I built up a very large company. I was one of the largest Title I home improvement lenders east of the Mississippi. And I sold that company in 1995. I was servicing thousands and thousands of home improvement loans. So this concept came to me because I was literally involved with it, lending second mortgages to people to fix up their house. And I was dealing with contractors all over the country.
So, here's and I have two things I want to kind of close out on. The first one is, I think it's relatively easy to be successful in any business right now. There's a lot of opportunity, providing you're willing to work, because a lot of people don't want to work. I think that's the number one problem. Or
100%.
They're afraid of risk. What I do think becomes difficult is scaling past a certain point becomes very difficult, because at that you're kind of detached from certain things because it's impossible. You to have the size operation that you've had, and like while you're doing that, you're building commercial complexes and you're flipping houses and you're doing this and you're building new construction in Northport and this and that. How do you do that? Like, what is your advice to business people now who have a successful business and are looking to scale and keep hitting their head on that ceiling?
Okay. Did you write all these questions down before we start? Like, these are like,
we're going.
These are awesome questions because it really gets to the crust of any business that you're trying to scale, like anything that you're trying to scale, you can run any business on your own with a certain amount of people, with a little bit of knowledge, right? Scaling a business goes back to what I was saying in the very beginning, is you have to hire the talent to do that. But you have to be willing to pay for that talent, because you're basically saying, listen, I brought it to a certain point I'm pretty happy with, but I do want to scale it. But while I'm scaling it, I'm going to treat you like an owner, and I'm going to let you do certain things that I normally wouldn't let you do, but I want to scale it. Like right now, I have people coming from all over the country. I have people come from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tennessee, Iowa. They're coming down, they're joining my crew. You have to just think a little bit outside the box. You have to be willing to bite the bullet. And sometimes you're going to overpay, but you're not really going to overpay, because you're just going to make a little bit less, but you're still going to make more.
Yeah.
So what's the big deal? Are we all that selfish in life? No. That is not how I live my life. Everybody deserves an opportunity. And maybe the person or persons that I am now saying, hey, I want you to scale this and give them that responsibility, maybe they're my exit strategy in years to come, who are going to take over this particular company. And I look at people like that and say, hey, you know what? I can't do this forever. These people are the future of the company. And that's how I look at it.
That leads me into my final question, which is, what's the future of Terry Cullen hold? I mean, you're still a young guy. There's a lot of gas in the tank. You've done a lot. But what's the future look like? I know you like the action. You're like me. I don't think you could ever sit around and do nothing.
I do like the action. I've done a lot in the real estate mortgage aspect of things. I have to tell you. There is a couple of patents that I have. There's a couple of things that I'm working on that I'm really passionate about. My son, I was just in the Midwest for a month. I don't know if I told you.
Yeah, I told
you. Yeah. So my oldest son graduated from medical school. He became a doctor. I have two things that I invented. I'm getting patents on that he loves, his friends love. And I would love to try and take a product or two to market. I think it would be really fascinating, and it would just challenge my brain. And that's something I would like to do.
So the game never ends, does it?
No, it just changes its structure. It changes its, just how you're going to use your time. But if you stop doing stuff, you're going to become mentally incapacitated, I think. I was at a party the other day with some very, very wealthy people. It was a shiver, actually. My brother's wife's father passed away, and we were at the Westbury Country Club, and I was talking to a lot of wealthy people and stuff. And I started asking people like, "Oh man, how come you're not retired? You own, they own buildings that are $150, $200 million." I met one kid, not a kid, my age, where his grandfather had a 100-year lease that he leased to somebody on a piece of property in Manhattan. And the building is like $1 billion building on top of this 100-year lease, which he leased in 1920 or 1922 or something. So the lease is coming due, and I meet some of these guys, and I'm like, man, how come you're not retired? And these guys would laugh, and they say, why the hell would I retire? Like, I love the action.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're growing up, you're like, I'm going to retire at 50. I'm going to retire at 60. I am not retiring.
Yeah.
I'm going to slow down, but I'm not going to retire. And so when you meet somebody that has these jobs and they're going to get a pension and everything else, you know, I look at them like, okay, great. You're going to, you know, fade away and I don't know what you're going to do. I'm not going to retire. I'm going to reinvent myself a couple of more times because that's what I feel like doing.
Dude.
I want to become you, maybe.
We got to get you a hat.
Do you
Just
have a
with better
desk
hair,
there?
right?
Do you have a Do you have a hat big enough for my head?
When you have good hair, you don't need it, man. Listen, Terry, I absolutely love you. You know that. You've been an inspiration to me over the years. I hope you've known that. You've been a great friend and a mentor. Whenever I needed something, I can always call you. So thank you for being you, and thank you for coming on here and sharing this with the audience. Terry Cullen, Interstate Home Loans out of Melville. What's the contact information for you guys in case people want to get in touch with you, whether they be realtors, attorneys, other loan officers that are not happy where they are and they're looking to go to the best of the best?
They could just call me on my cell. I give everybody my cell in my company. They could call or text me, 631-721-3602. Even if they call for free advice, they need some help putting together a deal. I've actually told people where to go for co-op loans or loans that I'm just not good at. I have, you know, I that's just the way I am. So, Charlie, you're really an inspiration to the younger people. What you've done, you said you were going to go to freaking NYU. I didn't want to ask you, like, I know the grades are better than what you got in high school. I'm sure you.
I barely got out of high school.
Right. I was just saying, but I know you crushed it where you went. Yeah. Dude, you're just a smart freaking guy that just has the charisma and you have you just have it. And you know what? I hope you continue to pass it forward, continue to do what you're doing and just be who you are. Don't change, dude. I've seen people change. I don't want to see you change, and I don't think you will. You're just a successful, happy, good, you're a good dude. You're one of the good ones out there. Don't change, please.
Thank you. I appreciate that advice, and I think that's great advice for everybody out there. So thank you again for coming. Everybody, that's Terry's number on the bottom scrolling across. Reach out to him if you need anything in the mortgage world. He's an awesome guy. He's awesome in business. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Terry, thank you again.
I love you, buddy. You take care now, okay? Be safe. All right, bye.
Orgulloso estoy de mi herencia judía. Benjamín Ben Shlomo, cuando me llaman a la torre, así me llamo yo. Orgulloso estoy de mi herencia judía.